Hello and welcome to another episode of the Low Code Cafe. This is episode number 126 for February 15, 2023. Today we'll be talking more about building a low code app. This is part two of a now two-part series, and we're going to be creating entities today. In this episode, we have talked more to the product owner and we've discovered additional details about what we're doing with the fitness center. And we think we have enough together to get started. Before we get into that, though, we will let me introduce myself. My name is Dale Warner. I'm head of support for Plant an App. I'm joined today by Patrick Anderson. He's a technical success manager for Plant an App as well. We do this episode every Wednesday, this hour, and it's an opportunity to get together and teach and explore something about low code. Oftentimes we have guest speakers, and if you have an application that you think would be useful as to display to the community, we'd appreciate you reaching out, and we would be happy to host you. All these episodes are recorded on our YouTube channel, and so you can get to that by youtube.com/plantanapp, and you can subscribe to that and hit the alarm bell. That way you'll know when we drop new episodes. Today we'll be talking a few things from the trenches, and then get right into our hands-on development with our team here. Please engage with us. The chat window is available. If you want to say something, there's an opportunity to do questions and answers. You can raise your hand and speak if you like, and then we will send out there is a feedback form. We'll have the link to that published on the chat window, but also it's in the emails that we send to you. From the Trenches segment is all about the kinds of things that we get into from support. And so with that, I will just announce, since we've gotten together last, which was 2 weeks ago, there have been 10 different hotfixes released, and I'll go over those briefly here. The majority of them have to do in the area of bug fixes. And so in our new interface for the app builder and APIs, for automation and APIs, we have a feature where you can, if more than one person is working on the same API or the same automation job, that you'll get it'll alert you so that you don't accidentally overwrite each other. And that's a great feature we've added to the product. But there was a concurrency check error that they've resolved. So if you're dealing in a multi-developer environment, this will be useful for you to install. There was an odd case in automation where if the first job happened to be an imported job, it wasn't being shown. So that case has been resolved. And then if you use our form builder together with tabs, when you tab from tab to tab, the form builder can be notified and perform actions, so it can react to the fact that the user has changed from one tab to another. Those weren't being executed in our prior to this hotfix, and now that's back fixed again. So that's an update. And then several things on listing builder, which I think will probably be handy for some of you. There was an issue where the root button was not, if you had a root button and displaying it on mobile screen, a small format screen, and it was displaying on the bottom, it wasn't displaying at all. And so this corrects that. And then if you are doing, we've now fixed embedding a listing within a listing. It wasn't working on Bootstrap 3. Bootstrap 3 is our older default. We're now recommending Bootstrap 5, and in the months to come we'll be obsoleting Bootstrap 3, so you'll want to have a plan to get to Bootstrap 5. Reach out to us if you haven't gotten that, if you need help with that issue. And then item button groups were not displaying well, and we've improved that. So if any of those happen to overlap with things that you want or need, then you should install those bug fixes. There was also an enhancement And this is just technical enough that I wanted to go over it and explain a little bit. If we have the actions to be able to open up a tabs in a pop-up, and we've added this Tabs Pro modal settings functionality, and you can provide it values like backdrop static, and we've implemented it as passing a JSON object. You can see here we've got JSON code. So if you by default, this is in there. If you're popping up a Tabs Pro, you don't have to put anything, and it'll keep its existing behavior, but you can get some new behaviors out of it, and the main ones of interest is backdrop static. So what does that mean? I have here how did I do that? All right. I have a page that has a number of elements on it, and I have a form that opens a tab, and you'll see when I click it, this tab has two tabs on the Tabs Pro module. There's an overview and a users tab, and so you click and you can get to both of them. And then it's provided an X over here, but this is just the default action. And one of the features of this is that if you click outside of the tab box, it'll disappear. And so you may not want a user to be able to accidentally click outside of the tab box. And so we've got another version of this, and I'll show you the button in a moment, but this open tab true modal, it's the same tab that's opening up, and I can click inside. But if I click out here, nothing happens. You're forced to interact with this, and it'll either need to close by way of an action or by the way of this X up at the top. And so it gives you a little bit more control. Mostly this is about preventing people from accidentally not making a choice in that tab module. So behind the scenes, what this looks like is we're going to open our open tab form. That's the form that's providing these buttons, that's opening the tab. And so on the open tab button, the one that has the default functionality, it's an open tabs pop-up and stop execution. It's opening the tabs on my page. Here's the new setting, Tabs Pro modal setting. It's blank, and so it does the old default behavior. If we look at the other button, it's exactly the same. It's still an open tabs pop-up, but it has this magic string in here, backdrop static, and backdrop static is the option that tells Bootstrap, don't let it close. So this is probably the main way that you'll want to use this, but there's other options available, and we're going to do a better job of documenting what those other options are, but for the moment, that's the main one that you'll want to use. Great. So that is our example for today. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago some known issues, and I'll continue to mention it as the DNN 9.11 is compatible with our Plantin app version 1.23 and above. You should not install DNN 9.11 until you get to Plantin app 1.23. If you do, it won't work right. We had an issue previously where we were even offering you the ability to upgrade to 9.11 before you get to Plantin app 1.23, and we've fixed that issue. So we're not trying to tempt you into doing something that's wrong, but if you independently decide to upgrade to 9.11, well, you should not independently decide to go to 9.11 until you get to 1.23. 9.11 is our recommended version. There's some security things that were fixed between the earlier versions and 9.11, and so our recommendation is if you have Plantin app 1.23 and above installed, go ahead and install 9.11. Reach out to us if you have questions about any of that. On Fridays, we do another event. It's the Low Code Campfire, and we invite you to engage in that. It's this same hour. And instead of being a webinar format where we're presenting things, it's a conversation format where we talk about things. And we get a lot of great content because we engage with you. So please do join us and engage with that. Links for this episode, I will grab those, I guess, from maybe Patrick, you can grab those and put them on the clipboard for everyone to see. I would appreciate that. And with that, we'll drop into our hands-on low coding for today. And I said with the Plant and App team, this is going to be a conversation today between Patrick and I. We met with the product owner, Tico, and we had a discussion about the from where we left off in the last episode, where Tico had described the business problem, and the problem has to do with creating a fitness center application. We'd gotten around to understanding where he wanted to go, but then we needed to look at it a little bit more, think about it, and come back to him with questions. So we came back to him with questions and got a few more answers. And now we think we have enough to at least begin moving forward. So we've done some analysis and planning, and hopefully today we'll get into building the data structure. Okay, thanks for posting those on the chat. Those links for this episode are all out there now. So we're going today, we're going to be talking about the analysis that we've done and the planning that we've done, and then start building the data structure. And so let's dive into it. If you follow along from the last episode, when Tico described the business problem, that we ended up on a Miro board that talked about the different properties that he wanted to track on the different aspects of his fitness application. And we pulled some of those off of that Miro board and put them on a spreadsheet, and it was just for the opportunity for us to talk about it and to make some plans. And so we picked out 5 different tables that we'll be dealing with today. So there's the location table, the subscriptions that we're going to offer to members. Those will have a subscription period. We have this other table. It's actually a combination users and people, and we'll talk about this and the strategy behind this together, so that we're kind of treating that as one element. And then when we have all those in place, we will actually have subscriptions, which will be the things that people have signed up for. So that's the big picture about where we're going. Location is pretty straightforward. In this, we have a company name for that location, and the location name, which will probably be a street or a city. We'll actually collect the address information for it, so street and house number and city, a phone number and email address, who the owner is, and the owner is going to be one of these things. It's going to be a person, right? So when we get to defining what people are, you'll be able to pick a person here for this. And then, and I guess now it's a good time to talk about my color coding. The owner is going to be a people with a people ID. So I'm going to use the same color to show linkage. So this color indicates this is just visually to try and show how these things link together a little bit without doing a database drawing. That location will have a bank account number, and will also track currency. This was just a random note, which I can drop off here. So we'll probably each location will probably be dealing in a single currency like euros or dollars. I'm sorry, it will. That's the definition. That's part of what we got from TICO. A location will be dealing in one currency, so we'll capture what the currency is for that location. So that's the first table we'll be defining. I'm going to skip on to subscription period. Subscriptions are going to be able to have periods like months and years or quarters, and so we'll define a table so that that'll be very easy to select and express in the interface, and be able to add more periods. So we'll start with monthly and yearly and quarterly, but perhaps if they wanted to do a 2-month period or a 4-month period, they'll be able to do that as well. Or 24 months, and perhaps they'll do a 2-year discount kind of a program. So it gives them kind of maximum flexibility. So we'll have periods, and so those will have properties like names and how many days are as part of that period. That's going to be used in subscription offerings. The idea is that the fitness center offers products like a basic membership, a diet add-on membership, a personal training add-on membership, and so whatever it is that they want to offer, they'll create a subscription offering record. And so that'll have things like it'll automatically get an ID, but it'll have a name and a description, a subscription period, and this is where it's going to link to our subscription period table. The offering will have a price in the company's currency, and we'll have a flag, a true-false flag, as to whether or not they can somebody can purchase that, because you might have a subscription that you offer now, and at some point you discontinue it for additional purchase. You might want to close it. So we'll have an ability to close off that purchase. Patrick, am I staying on track? Am I missing anything so far? See, I'm calling them out.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my mute button. I think so, yes. But I think that one thing I would add is that, just so everyone understands, that this very focused data model we have here is specifically modeled around the idea that the product owner, TICO, in this case, said that the #1 goal was to be able to invoice members. So we're building a structure around getting to that first goal. So the application will grow from there. Is that correct?
That is a terrific point, and I didn't have the original Miro board to show. There are another half-dozen tables that he has, or entities that he has identified that have to do with things like specific goals for a client, or trainer level kind of things, recommended exercises. There are very many other things. And then you're absolutely correct. We focused in on his first goal of let's build enough to do an invoice. Thanks for that. So now we get into a kind of an interesting area of we have people and users. Users will be able to sign on and access the system, and the clients will be able to do that. They'll be able to sign on and manage their account at some level. And so there's information that we want to track about people. And then there's also the concept that they have to be a user to the system. So we kind of considered 2 strategies, and as we discuss them, maybe Patrick, you can make sure help me as we kind of figure out determine how to proceed. So one strategy would be that we would only have a users table, the users that come as part of Plant an App / the DNN platform, and that has things like first name and last name and username and email, which is a lot of the information we need. But there's other information that we need, like where they live and There'll be fitness center specific kinds of things. Because this is being written in, for a company in the Netherlands, they have something called infix, which is the letters between first name and surname or last name. Tico's last name is De Ward, and so the infix is De. See, I learned something yesterday. I didn't know that for the first 60 years of my life, but now I know infix. So those kinds of things aren't supported in user and in the users table. And so one option would be to create profile properties, which is a kind of a DNN specific structure to store all this information. Is that the fair way to represent that?
Yeah, that's the option one. Yep.
Yep. And but it's the way that DNN stores that information, it's not a true table row structure, correct?
Right. And it stores it with a single row for each property value, an entire row for each property value, and we just decided that we didn't feel that working with that data structure was something we wanted to do, basically.
Exactly. If it because it's not, I mean, a person for us is really a row in a data set. We want to get back all their properties, be able to work with them in a low code kind of way, and doing it through these profile properties would you can't do it that way, and so it would end up being either more to set and retrieve information. You would require doing either other actions or additional SQL work, and so it becomes difficult to deal with. And I'm belaboring this a little bit because I think this is going to be a common scenario when anytime you're dealing with people who will also be users. How do you solve it? So our proposed solution is to create a people table, a people entity that will have all of the fields that we need about a person, and it will act just like all the other all the other entities that we are generating. It'll create all the actions necessary to create and delete and update and work with it in low code. It will have properties like the salutation, first name, infix, last name, their user ID on the from the users table. That'll be the link to that. We'll get into that in a minute. But also email address. We wanted date of the product owner, Tico, wanted date of birth and then their address information, and goal and profile picture. And all these things will be quite easy to provide in a Plantain app entity. But so these are the fields that we went with. So now, how does this relate to users? When for this particular project, the idea is that the statement is that every time that you have a person, they will be a user to the system. So when and people will be created by the staff of the fitness center. So there's not an external registration form, but rather a form that's filled out by the fitness center. When they do create a new person, we will add logic to create the user automatically, and that's a very straightforward step within with our actions. And then we'll also want to make sure that these things remain aligned. And visually, I had gotten them unaligned here, so I'm going to move them just for my. But for example, the first name on the people table, we'll want to maintain that on the user table, just so if it happens to be used out of the user table, it will have a good value. And in the same way, the last name and let's do this email. We'll keep everything all nicely aligned here. Email in the same way So we're saying that the people table is going to be the source of truth for these things, and anytime there's a change to them, they're going to be copied to the users table, which is something when we get into the logic of this, we can do pretty simply with an automation job that will watch the people table, and when there's changes to these things, it will just update users and keep them aligned quite easily. And then we will not allow changes from the user table. So good. And then the user ID, when we create when a new person is entered and a user gets created, it will result in a user ID, the unique number, and that's going to be the linkage between users and people. We'll get the user ID number and store it back to people, and that will be the way that we keep those linked up. Did I cover that anywhere near usefully?
Yes, I think the one thing I would add is that the primary purpose, and so in this case, the primary purpose of our users table is really going to be around permissions, because the user IDs will get roles in the system, and then when somebody logs in, it will be able to see their roles.
Absolutely, and permission even to log in the first place. And
right.
We'll let DNN handle passwords and things like that, so we don't have to get into that. But yep, so very good point. So with all that, we have our location, we have offerings that are linked to a period, we have people, and so now getting to our goal of what do we need to put together to invoice, to be able to generate invoices for this center, we get to subscriptions. So a subscription is going to be the things that people actually bought, and so it's going to be linked between every subscription will have a person, and it will also be linked to an offering. So it's a subscription is what person bought what thing, and then the things that we want to keep track of are the start date and end date. When does this access to this membership begin and end? Maybe end date won't be filled in, but start date might be some date in the future, for example. A note to be able to describe in text about that if we want to provide additional information, whether or not it's active. So it would be possible to deactivate a subscription and stop it from being billed. And then we're going to keep the next invoice date. And just the beginning of an idea here on billing is that if it's blank, if we haven't invoiced them in the past, and the start date has arrived, we'll generate an invoice for them. If the next invoice date has arrived, we'll invoice them, and then this date will get advanced forward by the amount of the subscription period. So we bill for 30 days, and then we advance the date 30 days or set it to 30 days in the future if it's a blank one. So we think we can do everything we need by way of an invoice date. So Patrick, I'm about to dive into to building these entities, but did you have any final thoughts before I do that?
I don't think so. No. I hope that that people find value in this. I think it's great to see thinking this through before actually diving in and building entities. I know that that people do, and I do, just go right in and start creating an entity and think it through from there. And that's certainly a legitimate and possible way of doing it. But I think this forces you to doing this kind of layout first and deciding where the connections are. It forces you to really think through things a little bit before you get in there. And absolutely, by no means does this mean we're stuck with this. We, obviously we'll probably there will be adjustments to this as we move along and grow the application.
Absolutely. And I think, it's probably worth just a couple seconds on why that is. Oftentimes, if I'm the product owner, if I'm the one that knows what I want to build, I can kind of do these things innately. I know where I need to start. You pick a spot that's clear in your mind and you get started, and then you continue to build out incrementally from there. I think one of the things that forces us in a little bit different direction is when you're dealing with an external product owner, you're interviewing somebody that comes to you with a problem. So if you're playing in that consultant role and you don't know how to do it, this probably is something like this, rather than just opening up the box and starting to design, is the way to go. You have to acquire the information and become familiar enough with it in order to build it out.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. So I put this on my other screen so I can refer to it, but we'll bounce back and forth a little bit just to keep some, so that you have some idea of where we are. So now this is the application that we started 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to look. We thought we were going to call this company, and we had properties like company name and business email, and so we have a lot of the ones that we need. But we, as part of that interview, we determined that we're not going to start out supporting many companies within this like it was a SaaS solution. We decided to bring our focus down in order to make this a more minimum viable product. We decided to focus in on that this application that we're building is just for one company, and so that might have multiple locations. So that changed our structure just a little bit from where we started. So this then becomes location, that change, and then the other properties that we had were these kinds of things, still very, very similar. So we'll draw from there. So we do have a company name, but we won't also have a location name. Add that, and I'm going to drag that to the top. And I want to set that as our display name. That's the thing that I want to be able to click. This has triggered our logic that says that this display name thing it's a required field, and we need to provide a value because we already have a record in the table. So it's we'll just provide a default value. So when this saves, it'll work. So anyway, we now have a location name, a company name. I had this as address 1 and address 2. We'll keep that. City. Sure. He asked specifically for house number, and that might be something specific to a Netherlands address. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that until we hear otherwise. The email, and we're going to come back and do owner. That was one. We have bank account number. Do we have that yet? Location, I don't think we do. Number and currency. I'm not sure. Currency is not a particular one, so we might want to do something more.
I mean, there's the money property, but
yeah, we're not really.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is just the currency type. Yep.
A currency type. So we might work more in that area when we get to that spot to define what the currency is. But at this point, it's a little early. It doesn't really matter. most things, I'm just going to, without even thinking about it, I'm going to make them all sortable. I like to be able to sort my, by whatever it is that I'm looking at that day. Filtering, we might make sense to filter locations by city or region. What was the distinction of region? Is that the same thing as city? I don't remember.
No, region will be like in the United States, that would be a state.
So filtering makes sense.
Yep.
We could filter by currency if there were different ones. That might make sense. Certainly want to be able to search by business email and phone, maybe house number and address. Yeah, the searchable is probably pretty good one. Yeah, if you had somebody's bank account number and you wanted to look up which location, you could do that. So I think that gives us some pretty good capabilities. Do we dare dive into permissions here? Who the location should only be who should be able to deal with that? Managers can work with everything. Employees probably don't need to be able to change location information. The business owner would be able to change their things. So this permissions looks like it works out pretty good so far.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, so we'll save that and override. What that override refers to the automatically generated content, the forms and listings that are associated with that. It's not unusual to get an error or a pop-up message, and for the most part, that's the recommendation is don't worry about it anymore. Let's see the location. I'm gonna see what we did with it. We displayed that in the menu under back office maintenance. So if we were to go into the preview of our site and look at it, we have back office as an item and locations as a sub item. So we can go in and see what we have and make sure we have at least a little data. So last week we entered this first test company. That's what triggered this required field to need a default location. And so that worked out nicely. So we have at least a location that we can work with if we have anything. We'll probably again quickly come back and enhance this because we skipped past owner, and I think it would be useful to do that once we have people defined, so we'll be able to come back and do that. And then Tico has committed that he'll come back through and add some good test data between now and the next time we take on enhancing this application. So that's a good start. Now we can move on. I'm going to go to subscription periods, and subscription periods are going to be used in the offerings. It's easier for me to get this out of the way first, but either way is fine. So this is going to be a new entity called subscription period, subscription periods in the plural. We are going to put this under the back office maintenance as well. Maybe even on, back office maintenance for now is a good spot for it. And this is going to have properties like name and days. So the name of the subscription period. And so we'll add that, and days period. And this is going to be an integer number, integer. And the clickable item is going to be name. These are both going to be required. And we will allow some sorting. The only, from a permission standpoint, this looks like something that owners can definitely do. Probably don't want to encourage deleting. People should think about deleting things before they they have a period and it might be connected to something else, so that's a problem, but we'll let the owner add them. Maybe this is employees probably won't be involved in setting up a period. So
That looks right to me. Yep.
okay. So now if we go to our back office, we have subscription periods, and we had a couple that we're thinking about here, monthly and yearly. So we'll add those two as starting spots. It's going to be, say, 30 days. And if we wanted to be more precise about this, we could, for example, accept 1 month or 3 months or 1 year. Days is kind of a simple way to deal with it, so I'm going to do that. 5, they get a free day. No, nobody gets a free day. Leap year will be a leap year, and perhaps some of these months or quarters will be the date might move a little bit over time on an invoice. Okay, so this gets us, we've gotten 2 things done, and so now we can move on to subscription offerings, and offerings are going to have things like name, description, subscription period, price, may purchase. So let's work through those. Close out our front view of the site and create a new entity. So this is going to be subscription offering is the singular, subscription offerings is the plural. We will continue to put this in back office maintenance. Let's have a offering has a name, and this is also how we'll refer to it, the clickable property. We'll have a description, and I'm envisioning this as a large text. If somebody were doing, we were displaying what are my offerings on the website, being able to fully expand that would make sense. It will have a subscription period. And as we do this, this is one of the nice features of Plantain App, being able to choose this link to an entity and just link it to subscription period, and we'll get all kinds of automatic things that happen as a result of that. It will have a price. Notice we're not saying per month or per whatever, it's per subscription period, price per subscription period. And this will be it could be money. Since we're collecting money would include a currency designation. And since we're saying that the currency is going to be coming from, what do you think, Patrick? Is this money or decimal?
I think we could still use money, and we can, yep.
Currency for them. Yep, good. So we have price, and then whether or not they may purchase. I almost spelled that wrong. It's very important to spell these things right in the first place. It keeps you from having to go back and fix things or live with a misspelling forever. I guess we can, and I say that we can change property names, but if you have it in code someplace, that can be annoying. So
yeah.
Okay. So this is a Boolean checkbox, yes, no, they can do that. And when they I think that's everything. So the description, we can require that. We want to require that they pick a period and a price, and this is an optional field. We'll allow this to be searchable, and we can filter by subscription period. We could search for a price, that wouldn't be bad. Filter by may purchase would be useful. And again, usually everything is sortable. So this, from a permissions standpoint, this is something that the business owner will do, definitely. And they can add things. Again, we'll keep them away from deleting things. Employees would not really have any reason to change any of that, right? Yeah.
Yep, makes sense to me.
Save that. So with our planning done, we can get through these pretty quickly. So we'll preview that as well, maybe add a couple of items. I know what we forgot. We didn't link that to the location. An offer, does an offering go to a location? I don't know. We'll come back to that. So we have offerings, and we'll add a couple. The subscription period came up monthly or yearly. That's the logic I was saying that we do for you automatically. So let's say that we charge monthly for this, and it's a very nice gym. So we'll do this for what, $79 a month. And whether or not this is something that we do want to offer for purchase. See, by default, we have got a dollar sign. So again, we'll end up working with the logic for this as we move forward to make sure it meets TCO's requirements. So we have a basic membership, and let's see, another example was a diet plan. So we'll add one more, and then we'll let him add the rest of the. So this is a. Also, let's say that this is also offered at a monthly for another $10, and people may purchase it. So our filtering is there. We can search for things like ad. We can search for diet. We can sort by price, low to high, high to low. So lots of different functionality all built in. So that's a couple of records. That's enough to get started. So that gets us through so we're now on to people and users. Users is defined. It's it comes as a table within the platform. So we'll skip right on to people and define this out, and then the rest of this is a logical link, which we probably won't get to today. So here we go. End up making it be a person table, isn't it? Still in the back office, we're just making maintenance screens. And we said we're going to have a salutation. This is going to be, and we know that it's going to be an integer. That's also interesting. Ooh, this is actually.
Yeah, right. It's a good. I'm glad you caught that, because that's important.
User does not have permissions to read from these. Maybe Tell me, is that going to save or is that going to be a problem?
I think it should. It's interesting. I haven't seen that in this context before. But
okay. Well, let's find out. It's unhappy. Oh, I didn't do this. So we'll say the last name is going to be the display name. So as a low-code developer, I want to make sure things are going to work right before I get too invested in that particular direction. So we have people, we have a new person, and we do have a link to the user IDs. So that'll be fine. It's going to work. And let me add it. Just curious, so let me set it. Yep, we're good. Since, again, because talking about our design and our automation, because the user is going to be managed very carefully by our logic, we will end up pulling that field off of the input form and the edit form. It'll happen automatically, but there's nothing wrong with displaying it on the listing. So we'll make some customizations here. On with person definition. It's gonna keep beating up us. This is the part where I say, Patrick, will you take a note?
Yes.
So after user ID, we had email, and that is a primitive that we have. Date of birth. That's going to be a date. Business owners selections here. Number. Might adjust if we need region. I don't know. Phone is going to be a phone field. Profile picture is going to be what, an image? That'll get some nice automatic features. Interesting.
It is.
And we're going to keep track of what location that they're at. And that is off of our location entity. So allow us to link them to a particular fitness center location. Oh, let's see. I skipped past some of the fun things here. So whether or not these are, this looks like it'd be good to filter and sort. Sure, why not? Yep. Birth could be sortable. We don't really care about searching by date of birth. Street name. This is where we're searchable. I wish this, when we redesign this, I hope we make those not roll off. So this is searchable we're working on. We'll do this, filterable, searchable, No sense search picture, but we can filter for a location. Again, most things sortable. My world. So the business owner should be able to do anything he wants. Even let them delete somebody. Yeah, let's hold off on deleting until we know what we're doing.
Mhm.
Customers can change their own entry if they were set as the owner. That's fun for Patrick. I'm throwing out. Employees definitely can change everything, just like the owner, and they can even add things. So this gets into and personal trainers are going to be able to view everything, but they're not going to be able to change information on the change or delete information on the wall. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and so I'm looking at the time, and 3 minutes till, so we'll look at what we got done and then summarize and set a goal for the next time. So we have our people, we have our properties for a person, we can set email addresses, for example, and I'm not going to tell you my birthday. And set address, location, we can tie it to a default location. We could put in a phone number here. It knows the US format. We might want to default this to the country code of the location, and that might be a great one to add to as a field to the location, is what the country code is. So we can default that nicely. So the things you learn as you go along and actually try and do these things. Okay. And then when we, as we move along, the screen is going to get pretty busy, and we might take some of these things off the screen and turn them into details and things like that, so that they're a little bit better display. We take up a lot of space for Mr. Dale Warner. That could be all combined into one field. It's a little bit of work. So there's more things we can do. But in terms of progress, we got location, subscription, periods, the beginning of people. So when we continue, we'll link that up to the users and do subscriptions, and that'll be a nice next step, and we'll be able to get into invoicing. We haven't, I don't know if there are any questions. None have been posed.
No.
But we'd love to answer any questions. Other than that, thanks for hanging in there with us, and we hope that expanding on how to go about this process, building a new application, is of value to you. This is a recurring story. It won't be every week, but we will be returning to this, and so we'll do that and other new Clinton app low code content next week. And again, don't forget Fridays at Campfire. But we thank you for being part of this low code webinar today, and we will see you next time. Bye.